Hi YouTube. To whoever asked if Kelly had come back, and I'm sorry, I don't recall your username right now. Yes, Kelly always comes back. She's good that way. Anyway, here's where we are today. Actually, I do apologize for these low light projections, right? No visual, not terribly useful. I can see fine. I'm standing in Cedar Vale Ravine at the bottom near St. Clair and Spadina, and there's an off-leash area, a tiny one right here, and there are large trees, and they've been standing here for a while, and they've been sucking the water out of the ground for a couple of years now and staring up at the sun. And Kelly and I usually come up here, and there's two trees that grow right beside one another, and we sort of lean on them because, you know, it's good to lean sometime. Be the leaner who he will. And she munches on a stick, and I stare at the trees, and sometimes they drip on me, and sometimes there are hawks, actually, and a wonderful photographer named Carol who takes astounding pictures of them. And you watch them flutter from tree to tree, and one evening I was lucky enough to see an owl. Funnily enough, I did not hear the owl, although a massive kite-like shape fluttered across the landscape and landed in the tree in front of me, and it was silent. So that was kind of cool. And the day has been busy. Work is kind of a little bit hectic right now. It's not too bad. Nothing happened next door, and I should have a quick word about next door. I said last night that I would say something about the issue next door. There's been a hole that was where a house was demolished in June, and there's been very little activity except to tear the house down. So the sides of the holes have eroded, and since the houses are so close to one another, that erosion is quite damaging to our homes. So on the one side, my neighbor of this hole, or whole neighbors, has had his patio collapse into the hole, large slabs of his walkway. Now imagine you take two houses that are 3 feet apart and you pour a walkway of concrete about 3 inches thick. That's what's between these houses. And there's about 30 feet of walkway, and they're 3 feet wide. So at 3 inches, I looked it up, that's about 1,600 pounds of concrete that just sits there between the houses. So they knock down the house, and these things fall into the hole. And on one side it collapsed completely, and I'll post a link to the pictures of that. And on my side, I kind of demanded that they leave the inside foundation wall up, and then they started digging and undermined that wall, and a 6 by 7 foot cinder block wall fell over in the night next to my house. My neighbor says that he heard thunder and felt the ground shake as it hit the ground. Now, I can tell you here and now that should anybody, child or full-grown silly man, stands under that when that falls, that would be the end of their life. And there'd be a family somewhere out there with a sometimes full headstrong father, or, a parent with an over-curious child. And this site is completely open. There is, I don't know if you've seen what weather fencing looks like, that orange stuff that you can sit on and it goes down. That's what encloses the thing. So we have been having problems. So, and I've spoken to the inspector, the building inspector before, and to his credit, he has improved his response immeasurably. And I also wrote a letter to our local councillor, Joe Mahavik, my apologies, Joe Mahavik. And Joe Mahavik I spoke to seems like a solid fellow with his feet on the ground and his head firmly on his shoulders, actually, to use a really old phrase. He knows the ropes. He's been around 20 years. He said this was definitely an issue. I was perfectly legitimate in my concern. I was well within my rights. Being the person that I am, I read the building code the day before, and it talks about what inspectors can do when there are problems. And one of the things an inspector can do, according to the code, I think it's 1510, and somebody can look that up and prove me wrong, that a supervisor an inspector can go on site, and if they say that something is of danger to somebody's life, they can order whatever work they want, and if the work isn't done, they are authorized to make any changes required and then bill the homeowner. Perfectly legitimate. They're causing the problem. If the city has to fix it, so be it. I mean, it's not the same scale, obviously, but think about what they're talking about with Sunrise Propane, right? So the city had to clean it up, and now the company is going to be liable for all of that cost. And frankly, the city can step in here and make sure the 1,600-pound wall of concrete that is now 8 foot above a hole is not walked on anymore, perhaps. It's attached by one side along its edge to our home and a drain pipe that goes directly into the storm sewer drain for our home, and a bunch of eroding soil. So I've asked the city to please brace, either safely remove or brace it or put up concrete and build the house competently. You know, if the hole wants to sit there for the year, that's fine, but you pour those foundations, and the foundations have to last for the next 80 or so years. So could we please make sure that they're poured correctly and don't undermine my own? So that is the post about the house. Beyond all that, and really, in the end, I think it'll be fine. You know, this will get fixed. Something will happen. We will get on with this. People understand their responsibilities here. I think Joe Mahavik is as I say, I think he's aware. So I felt good about that. But moving along, and the neighbors think very highly of him as well, which I thought was quite important. You know, I spoke to my neighbors, and they are frustrated. I mean, this person who lives between our houses, you know, he's not making friends right now. So they heard Mahavik's name and said, ah, yeah, he's a good guy. So I will hope, and ultimately, I don't care. You know, it's material goods. I pray, I hope, I pray. I pray here and now no one gets hurt at that site, and I mean that. But ultimately, the thing that I care most about hopefully lives within my hope. It's a long wait, 2 weeks, but hope is nauseous, and I don't think two people have ever been this happy to be nauseous before. No, I'm sure, you know what? I'm sure every woman who's gone through this felt the slightest sign of pregnancy and blessed the Lord and hoped. And that's more or less what we're doing. You know, we are davening in our own ways. The davening is praying Hebrew. But no, honestly, sometimes you just go down on your knees in a place like this, with giant trees that have been sucking water out of the soil and staring at the sun, and you stand up and you look up and you say, you know what? There's a lot of life around me. It manages quite nicely. I'm not all that big. But it's good to be here. I'm glad I see this. I'm glad I see the light percolating through the leaves. It's a good time to be here with my dog, who's munching on a stick, and a wife who may be pregnant. And a bunch of friends out there who I would not trade for anything in the world. And I thank you so much for your prayers, because, you know, we each made our own journey, but it was your cheering that got us there in the end, I think. So thank you. And so, you know what? I think it's got to be more of a general thing. We don't just pray for the 2 lives in one woman's belly, although hopefully they're doing well, and they're mine, and they're mine, and they're mine. Thank you so much. I sent a letter to the wife of an author who has been really moving this book along that I'm working on. And I said to her, I apologize that I have not been as receptive or responsive as I normally am, because Hope and I are going through an IVF cycle, and we've sat at their table before. And I said, you know, I said today to her, you know, before, that we were worried, and she sent a beautiful letter back. And then I sent her a letter today that it looks like it's good. You know, the procedure went forward. It's gone as well as you can, and it's 2 weeks. It's a bit long wait, but we are hopeful. And I said, but there are few parents that have the opportunity to look at the screen and see their future in tiny little golden bubbles of genetic information and it's our genetic information. And they're like chrysanthemums on the screen. And Sima wrote back to me. She said, let us know when your chrysanthemums bloom. I will do a prayer for you tonight. Thank you all for your prayers. They are much appreciated. Thank you very much to everyone that brought us here. And I hope that all the love that we have experienced together serve to calm our little bit of the world down a bit. And our awareness of how precious life can be and how hard it is to join and create that life sometimes, that we'll treat it a little better. So thank you very much, my friends, and I'll speak to you soon.